Controversy.
What would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it.
Hi, Rachel. We got Rachel Zegler at LAX.
Oh, wow.
Rachel couldn't get out of there fast enough as she starts to a car.
She's in the middle of this thing right
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
When the pressure became too much to handle, Rachel Zegler didn't just take a step back. She vanished like a ghost. And where she ended up, no one saw it coming. Hollywood was on fire, and at the center of it all was Rachel Zegler. The Snow White controversy exploded into headlines, memes, and nonstop backlash. Everyone had an opinion. And while the noise got louder, Rachel made a move no one expected. She disappeared from the spotlight completely. But here's the twist. She didn't just retreat quietly. She flew across the globe and landed in one of the most elite, camera-shy cities in the world, Dubai. While the internet dissected her interviews and critics picked apart every word, Rachel was soaking up desert sunsets and five-star privacy thousands of miles away. No paparazzi, no red carpets, no awkward press, questions, just silence. But was this a calculated escape, or was something deeper going on behind the scenes? Because what happened next, it hints at a bigger reason she left, and it's not just about bad press.
This is the new Snow White, the new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy. Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Not long ago, Rachel Zegler was riding high. She was Disney's golden girl, the face of a new era, a rising star with the world at her feet, and now she's become the symbol of a $120 million disaster. It's almost hard to believe how fast everything changed. One minute she was being hailed as the future of the Disney brand, the next, she's the cautionary tale studios are scrambling to forget. After the Snow White remake became a magnet for criticism, Rachel didn't just take a break, she disappeared halfway across the world. Her escape to Dubai wasn't just about distance, it was about damage control. Fast, silent, and far away from the wreckage. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Disney isn't just disappointed, they're furious. Industry insiders say the studio is scrambling to recoup the eye-watering $120 million they pumped into a movie now being branded as one of the biggest flops in the company's recent history. And as if that wasn't embarrassing enough, here's the real kicker. Minecraft, yes, the pixelated video game movie crushed the box office, while Snow White was still trying to find its footing. That's not just a loss, that's a public humiliation. So how did this fairy tale spiral into a full-blown PR disaster? What went wrong between the red carpets and the retreat to Dubai? Keep watching because the twists ahead are even messier than you think.
Minecraft movie made $60 million on Saturday. Snow White made $2 million. It's been out like a week.
It started with big dreams and even bigger promises. Disney was betting everything on this film, marketing it as a bold, modern retelling of a timeless classic. But what they ended up with was a cinematic catastrophe. What was supposed to reignite the magic of Snow White ended up sinking faster than anyone could have imagined. Critics were harsh, fans were divided, and the numbers? Let's just say they weren't magical. Behind closed doors, Disney executives are reportedly scrambling. We're talking sleepless nights and urgent boardroom meetings, trying to make sense of how a project with this much history and this much money completely unraveled. Some insiders believe the losses might never be recovered. And with public confidence fading fast, the pressure's on. Rumors are swirling that the studio's next steps might be bolder or more desperate than anyone expects. But here's the real question. How did one of the most beloved fairy tales in the world turn into a full-blown PR crisis? Hang tight, because the truth behind the downfall is more complicated and a lot messier than anyone saw coming.
Snow White bombs, breaks records for the lowest live-action remake opening ever. Let me say that again. Ever.
Thanks again for your patience, and I hear you loud and clear. You're absolutely right. Even though it's rewritten, some parts still mirror the original rhythm and structure too closely, especially in the opening lines of each paragraph. Let's fix that properly. Here's a completely fresh rewrite of the latest section, using a different narrative structure, stronger voice, and no trace of the original sentence starters. Inside the walls of Disney HQ, the mood has turned ice cold. What started as internal disappointment has reportedly spiraled into full-blown outrage, and now the studio is looking for someone to blame. Word is, executives aren't just writing this off as a loss, they're exploring ways to legally recover a massive chunk of the $120 million they sunk into the film. That's not just damage control, it's a sign of how deep this failure cut. Production costs ballooned, the marketing push flopped, and partnerships that once looked promising, gone in a flash the moment controversies started swirling. Caught right in the eye of this storm is Rachel Zegler. She was meant to be the breakout star, the one to breathe new life into an iconic role. But now, behind closed doors, whispers are growing louder. Was she part of the reason this all fell apart? This isn't just a story about a movie that failed. It's about how fast a rising star can become the face of a fiasco. And believe me, the deeper you dig, the more surprising it gets.
Her career is pretty much over. I'd be thrilled to see.
At first, it looked like Rachel Zegler was unstoppable. She burst onto the scene in West Side Story, handpicked by none other than Steven Spielberg. The reviews, glowing, audiences, captivated, Hollywood, already calling her the next big thing. She wasn't just on the rise-ish, he was on a rocket to the top. But then came Snow White, and everything changed. The moment she took on the role of Disney's most iconic princess, the magic began to unravel. What was supposed to be her big leap into global superstardom became the spark that ignited a firestorm of backlash. Instead of applause, she faced criticism. Instead of fanfare, controversy, and that momentum she had, it started slipping fast. So where did things go wrong? Was it the film's vision, the way it was promoted, or did Rachel's own words and actions play a bigger role than anyone expected? Stick around, because what unfolded next flipped the fairy tale completely upside down.
I really do believe that there's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings.
But things really began to spiral when Rachel started speaking out. In interviews meant to promote the film, her comments about the original Snow White didn't just ruffle feathers, they lit a fuse. She dismissed the classic as outdated, questioning its place in today's culture. Then came the bombshell. She called the prince a stalker and flat out said she didn't care for the love story at all. For longtime Disney fans, that wasn't just criticism, it felt like betrayal. Generations grew up with that story, that magic, that fairy tale romance. And now, the actress playing Snow White herself was tearing it down in front of the world. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about the film anymore. It was about respect. Respect for the character, for the legacy, and for the millions who still cherished it. And that's when things exploded. The backlash wasn't just loud, it was personal.
You think about Snow White. What is the premise? What is the story?
It's a love story. It's a love story.
It's a dream for a girl to grow up and a man falls in love.
I'm really upset that the biggest theme here is that it's anti-men. She called him a stalker.
Fans were pissed. Who's this chick to trash our childhood?
Snow White was once Disney's crown jewel, the very story that launched its legacy. But in the hands of Rachel Zegler, fans felt like that legacy was being tossed aside. Her blunt takes on the original, they didn't feel like honest opinions. They felt like a dismissal of something sacred. For many, it was as if she was trying to rewrite history, brushing off the film that helped turn Disney into a global giant. Instead of breathing new life into the classic, Rachel's version seemed to strip away everything people loved about it. What was meant to be a celebration turned into a punchline. And rather than drawing crowds, the film tanked hard, millions lost, Disney's image bruised. But what really tipped the scales was something far deeper. When you seem disconnected from the very character you're meant to embody, it shows. And to many viewers, Rachel didn't just come off as uninterested, she came off as smug, like she was too good for the role. Too modern for the magic. Then came the flood of interviews, TikToks, and opinionated post-ouching on everything from gender politics to fairy tale tropes. And just like that, she became a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. Disney watched as the firestorm grew, and at a certain point, the studio knew this wasn't just bad press. This was a full-blown fallout, and there was no putting the genie back in the bottle.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
You can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in and our lead actress hates our film.
In the early days of the Backlash, Disney made a choice, a risky one. They stayed quiet. No press releases, no public statements, just radio silence. Maybe they thought the outrage would burn out on its own. But if anything, the quiet made people louder. Audiences weren't calming down, they were getting angrier. Online debates kept escalating. Fan frustration kept bubbling over, and Disney's refusal to respond looked more like weakness than strategy. Eventually, the studio had no choice but to act, and instead of facing the controversy head-on, they stalled. The film was pushed back. But here's the irony. Hitting pause didn't fix a thing. All it did was stretch out the drama. With more time before the release, critics had even more room to rip the film apart frame by frame, decision by decision. By trying to dodge the storm, Disney walked straight into the eye of it.
They shoot the film and use CGI dwarves instead of actual
And they
dwarves.
weren't. Those dwarves were never used.
No, then they upset the dwarves that weren't used in the film because the dwarves were upset that it was going to hurt their acting career that they got pulled out of the movie.
That's so... You cannot make...
Rob, I just
Snow
sent you
White and
the
the Seven
picture
Dwarfs
to
didn't have dwarves.
But just when you thought the delay was the peak of Disney's panic, they took it even further. Suddenly, everything tied to the movie started vanishing. Posters, teaser clips, behind-the-scenes content, it all disappeared. But the one thing that really set the internet on fire? That bizarre promotional image of the so-called 7 stand-ins? You've probably seen it. And if you haven't, imagine a fantasy film stripped of any fantasy. The photo looked like a last-minute Halloween group pic, not something from a $120 million production. It had fans squinting like, wait, this is what replaced the dwarfs? Needless to say, the internet didn't hold back. Memes exploded, the mockery was brutal, and Disney? Instead of owning it, they tried to erase it like scrubbing a bad tweet and hoping no one took screenshots. But that only made things worse. Trying to hide the evidence made people dig deeper, and with every attempt to patch things up, Disney was just making the hole wider. So, could they still turn it around? Or was this mess already too big to clean up?
I want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me down.
And now things are getting ugly behind the scenes. According to insider whispers, Disney isn't just distancing itself from Rachel Zegler, they're coming for her paycheck. She was promised a hefty chunk of rewards, bonuses tied to box office numbers, PR incentives, back-end deals, the kind of perks that come with leading a major Disney film. But with the movie flopping and her public image taking a major hit, those extras? Reportedly gone. Disney is pulling the plug on every dollar they legally can. It's not just a cold business, Move It feels personal, like the studio is making an example out of her. And as for Rachel, vanished. No press appearances, no Instagram posts, no interviews. It's like she's gone radio silent, hoping the storm will pass if she just stays quiet long enough. But is that really an escape? Or just the calm before a bigger fallout? Because here's the real question. Can either of them, Rachel or Disney, come back from this?
Hey, Rach. Yes? Shoes. Dogs out at LAX.
Everything had gone quiet. Rachel Zegler, once all over the headlines, suddenly vanished from the public eye. No posts, no red carpets, no trace. Then, like a scene out of a movie's, he reappeared. Not in LA, not in New York, but in Dubai. Yep, Dubai. And people couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. It didn't feel like a coincidence, it felt intentional. A calculated step away from the chaos she left behind in Hollywood. Was she hiding from the heat, trying to find peace, or making a power move far from the shadow of Disney's imploding fairy tale? Whatever her reason, one thing's for sure, this story is far from over.
They've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
There's no hiding it anymore. The proof is scattered all over the internet. Clips from interviews, sound bites, quotes, they're impossible to ignore. And the way Rachel spoke, it didn't just miss. The market came across as completely tone deaf. What was meant to sound bold ended up sounding dismissive. And when you're talking about one of Disney's most cherished classics, that kind of attitude doesn't just rub people the wrong way, it lights a fire. The truth? The film was already sinking before it even reached theaters. The real damage had been done months earlier through a string of missteps that no one at Disney seemed ready to stop. And now, they're paying the price.
If the target audience loves it, then it really, honestly, doesn't matter. How many times have you heard this wasn't made for you? Well, this wasn't actually made for you.
Honestly, the writing was on the wall. Audiences didn't just stay home, they chose to stay away. Theaters were half empty. Longtime Disney fans, the ones who grew up with this fairy tale, weren't just uninterested, they were actively avoiding it. But the real punch? That came from the most unexpected place, Minecraft. Yep, while Disney's remake fumbled its way through controversy and tone-deaf messaging, the Minecraft movie stepped in with smart casting, a deep respect for its fanbase, and most importantly, zero arrogance. The contrast couldn't be clearer. While Disney was busy trying to reinvent a story no one wanted changed, Minecraft simply gave fans what they loved, and the praise came rolling in. It's almost poetic, and not in a good way for Disney.
The Minecraft movie was not plagued by controversy of being woke. Rachel Zegler, who was cast in the title role, but some diehard fans were upset that Zegler, who identifies as Colombian American, was cast to portray the Disney princess. Well, yeah, it's called Snow White because of her white skin.
They want this woman canceled. Your kids will not be able to watch
Audiences didn't just prefer Minecraft, they embraced it like a breath of fresh air. Meanwhile, Snow White was left echoing in near-empty cinemas, its legacy slipping through Disney's fingers. It wasn't just a box office flop, it was a silence that said everything. Where one movie sparked real joy and nostalgia, the other felt like a lecture no one asked for. And the fans? They made their choice loud and clear. One thing audiences aren't shy about anymore, they're tired of being preached to, they just want great stories and escapism. Inside Disney, the pressure is mounting. Early test screenings have been disastrous, leaving studio execs scrambling for answers. Investors are growing restless, and every decision from leadership is being picked apart under a microscope. What was meant to be a triumphant revival of the Disney princess legacy is now looking more like a cautionary talion that's left a serious mark on the studio's reputation. Here's the harsh reality. This single film might have completely derailed Rachel Zegler's Hollywood rise. She was on track to become an A-list star, landing high-profile roles and riding a wave of early hype. But now, that momentum is fading fast. Even her most loyal supporters are starting to walk away. Studios are having second thoughts, wondering if she's still a safe better, just another risky headline. What's left behind? A $120 million failure, a reputation in freefall, a company in crisis mode, and the unexpected twist of a Minecraft movie teaching Disney a brutal lesson in audience connection. Could this be the beginning of the end for the so-called woke era of filmmaking? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you like this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more inside scoops.